1995 was a very difficult year for me. Some very big shifts happened. August of 1995, as a matter of fact, I received a phone call from my father. He was drunk and he was babbling on about stuff. We had lost my older sister 3 years earlier, and he just hadn't been the same since then. And so now, August 1995, he's calling me, he's drunk, and I don't really know what to do. And so when he starts to, so I began to reminisce and to go down memory lane and to rehearse for him some very difficult moments in my childhood. And when we got to this one particular moment, instead of him, apologizing, he just bust out laughing. Why'd he do that? There was something in me that went so dark and so deep that for 2.5 hours, I flat cussed him out. Then I hung up the phone. And then I felt guilty. And so I thought, let me try to get this back on track. But we never could get it back on track. He refused to take any more of my phone calls. He refused to read any of my letters. I would even try to send his mother a card for him. And I would say, hey, Grandma, please read this so that he can see that it's a safe card. She would do that. He wouldn't have any of it. He wanted nothing to do with me. And then he dies, January 2011, and we have not reconciled, despite my genuine efforts and my best attempts. So, everyone else is celebrating, their dad and, all of these sorts of things. And basically since 1995, I hadn't been a part of any of that. And I did my best. And so when he died, I was like, okay, I'm at peace that I tried all that I could. I also had a very firm rule that I forgive everyone in their 20s for whatever happens in that space. And so that was just kind of this hard and fast rule. And as I was examining my own 20s, I had a lot of grace for myself and would do grace for my mentees and encourage them to have grace for themselves and grace for others as well. So those were that was a hard and fast rule. But one Sunday in June, I was reading a book by Brene Brown called Rising Strong. And in the book, she is, she's so insightful. And so I'm highlighting and I'm doing all these different things. And it was my practice was on Sunday mornings to do meditation reading before I would go to church. Practice I still continue to this day. So on this particular Sunday in June, I'm reading this chapter where she talks about forgiveness. And she says something that finally does not strike me as sappy, please, love, God wants you to love and God wants you to forgive. It was there was none of that. She said that when we are having a difficult time forgiving, it is, because we have not, we wrote the story differently. We wanted them to make different choices than what they made. And now we don't really know how to go back. So she encouraged her readers to rewrite the story. And for whatever reason, I immediately thought of my dad. And I thought, wait, I think I finally have a window into really forgiving him, not doing sort of the hyper religious, oh, yes, I forgive him for my state of mind or my peace or whatever. It was none of that for me. I still was holding some stuff against old boy. But when she said this, to rewrite the story, I thought, okay, here we go. So I remember walking around my community and I rewrote his narrative. And then it occurred to me that all of the things that had been happening with him started when he was in his 20s. He had 3 different children by 3 different women. And he has no money. So he goes into the military and he ends up marrying my mother. And he was no prize. So I don't know if any of the other 2 were trying to marry him. But when he married my mom, I was okay, look, I kind of wish he'd have gone with the others. But that's neither here nor there. It was a very, very dark season of my childhood. And we came out okay. But I'm rewriting this story and I am remembering my own standard of forgiving people everything that happens in their 20s. And so I'm thinking about how difficult it must have been for him to not have money, how difficult it must have been for him to have squandered opportunities, how difficult it was for him to not be able to go back and to erase any of these mistakes, how difficult it must have been for him to not have enough courage and humility to say, you know what, I really fucked this up and I wish that I could have done it differently. And it was at that point, as I'm writing the story, rewriting his narrative, that I finally find the space to say, hey, I forgive you. You were in your 20s and we all do some really jacked up things in our 20s. So all is well, Pop, all is well. So I finished my prayer walk. And as I'm passing in front of a grocery store, I see all of these different people coming out of the store with carrying balloons. And I thought what's the special day today? What's this holiday? And I read the balloons. They say, Happy Father's Day. And I looked up and I was like, really, God? Really? You got that kind of flair? Like my liberty and the forgiveness that I offer for him, this whole experience, this whole rewriting of his narrative happened on Father's Day. And since then, I have lived with, even a greater transcendent peace about that, but even more so about just the flavor that God has and the style, the ways in which it just keeps all working out. And so even to this day, every Father's Day, I say, all is well, Pop. All is well.